Hello there, welcome to my views and news. A look at headlines first before detailed news stories. Fano fighters have released, they have carried out an attack, and in the attack they secured the release of their comrade today. It was confirmed by them. The operation was launched by Fano fighters in South Gondar reportedly. Not the first attack by Fano fighters on police stations, on the facilities where their colleagues or their companions are being kept imprisoned. Secondly was Tigray. Tigray fighters are now being officially discharged. 2 days ago, we saw pictures of a discharge certificate being issued to Tigray fighters, and today pictures emerged showing Tigray fighters who have been discharged from military service reportedly. Thirdly, Eritrea viewers, Eritrean Information Ministry today published an article about Sava, where 35th round of national service graduation ceremony was held a week ago. Eritrean president attended that program too. The Information Ministry of Eritrea has published interviews of three recruits, three youths who have received training, who were part of this 35th batch of Sava military training. The rosy picture of Sava shared by Eritrea is very different from the horrific picture of Sava which is painted by human rights organizations. So how to find the real picture of Sava? Thirdly, we are Sudan. On Sudan-Chad border, where tens of thousands of Sudanese refugees have entered Chad, an operation was launched by Chadian and French troops, and Sudanese refugees were relocated to a new camp. So French military is operating on Chad-Sudan border. Why? Does Chad has a military? Why is there need for having a French military on Chad-Sudan border? Firstly, the first news story is about release of Fano fighters. We are seeing now that it is becoming difficult to arrest Fano fighters, Fano supporters in the Amhara region now. It wasn't the case last year. Last year, when Ethiopian military regional forces launched an operation against Fano fighters, we saw that thousands were arrested. Fano fighters, their family members, their supporters, activists, journalists were arrested, and no reaction. But this year, things have changed. Now, wherever Fano fighters are detained by security forces, Fano factions respond. They immediately issue ultimatums. They warn police and militia to release the Fano fighters. If the fighters are not released, then Fano fighters storm cities, towns, prisons. We have seen several attacks by Fano fighters for the release of their comrades in the Amhara region. What happened in Maksanath, close to Gondar? A Fano fighter was arrested. Fano commander called for his release. He was not released. And then hundreds of Fano fighters stormed the city. They kidnapped mayor's son, and the imprisoned Fano fighter had to be released. So it is happening now across Amhara region, and no new arrests of Fano fighters are easy now. Even those who were arrested last year, it is difficult to keep them in prison. Some were already relocated out of the Amhara region. Those who are in Amhara region, it's difficult now to keep them in prison because Fano fighters are carrying out attacks on prisons, on correction centers. A Fano faction from South Gondar has confirmed the release of 4 of their comrades. They say that the 4 Fano fighters were arrested, they say illegally arrested by forces, security forces. It happened in Addis Zaman. Addis Zaman is a town in South Gondar zone, and there 2 days ago there was unrest in Addis Zaman. The unrest was in connection, it was linked to the arrest of Fano fighters. Fano fighters warned the city government, they entered the city, there was clashes between Fano and police and militia members, and Fano managed to secure the release of 4 of their comrades, confirmed. So we're seeing this pattern in entire Amhara region, that police militias are unable to keep Fano fighters in prisons or to arrest new Fano fighters. Fighting ongoing, yes. Fano fighters injured to dying to casualties on both sides too, but it is not difficult to arrest Fano fighters, especially in the Amhara region. If they're arrested, they'll have to be relocated out of the Amhara region. Meanwhile, there was intense fighting in North Wallo, Makat district. Agrit is the name of the place where for the past few hours reports have been coming in of heavy clashes between Fano fighters, police and militia. Reportedly casualties are being witnessed. People say that some militia members, police members have been killed. Some Fano fighters injured too. It's difficult to get information about casualties in these confrontations because both sides don't acknowledge their losses. Fano fighters sometimes when their comrades die, they bury them, they try to tell the people that they are fighting, but Ethiopian government side does not disclose its losses. Police, militia, ENDF are not saying any word how many people died so far on the government side in attacks by Fano. I think while the regional president is offering talks to Fano, which should be backed, at the same time he should tell the people how many police officials have been killed, how many injured, how many PP members injured so far in attacks by Fano fighters. Problem is Fano fighters don't claim responsibility for these attacks. They say they have not carried out these attacks. Basically, they are carrying out all types of attacks, ambush style attacks, hit and run attacks, hand grenades being thrown, but they are not claiming responsibility for these attacks and assassinations. Secondly was Tigrayan region of Ethiopia, where gradually disarmament campaign DDR is underway. Though peace deal was signed in Pretoria between TPLF and Ethiopian government in November last year. More than 6 months have passed, but now gradually Tigrayan fighters are being discharged. They are being demobilized formally. Tigrayan fighters were deployed on front lines. They were told to report at camps. Then Tigrayan surrendered heavy weapons, tanks, artillery pieces, air force weapons, missiles, group weapons handed over by Tigrayan forces to Ethiopian National Defense Force. And then we saw that those Tigrayan fighters who were told to report at camps, a process kicked off to discharge them. 2 days ago, we saw pictures of a discharge certificate which is being issued to these TDF members. Acknowledgement of their work with the TDF. Now, they are being discharged. It means that they are being told to go to their homes. They can live with their families now. They were at camps mostly, but now they are going to join their families. Important point is how many have been demobilized, How many have been discharged? What are the true numbers? How many Tigray fighters were part of Tigray Defense Force? How many have been discharged? How many are still deployed on front lines? Because 2 days ago, an Amhara regional government administrator said that 2 divisions of Tigray fighters were deployed along Takase, close to western Tigray, Humera Volkayt. So it means that tens of thousands of Tigray fighters are still part of TDF. So what is needed is transparency. How many TDF members took part in the war? How many died? How many injured? How many are disabled? How many have been discharged? That transparency is needed. And after this demobilization, discharging of soldiers, there is a next step which is very crucial, and that is reintegration. These Tigray fighters will have to be reintegrated into regional police, federal forces, or they'll have to be provided with jobs, or they'll have to be given some money to start businesses. These Tigray fighters are battle hardened, very skilled and fully trained soldiers. How to keep them away from criminal elements? It could be a challenge for regional government, for federal government, if there is no progress towards reintegration. Reintegration is very crucial part of the implementation of Pretoria deal, but so far the Ethiopian Rehabilitation Commission is asking for funds. It is in need of 0.75 billion US dollars for reintegration of around 370,000 combatants across Ethiopia. Thirdly, viewers, Eritrean Information Ministry today published an article about Sawa, where 35th round of military training and national service, its graduation ceremony was organized at Sawa a few days ago. President Isaias Afwerki was the chief guest back then at Sawa last week. The Information Ministry of Eritrea has published interviews or statements of 3 cadets who were part of this 35th batch of Sawa recruits. And the 3 recruits, 2 female, 1 male, in their statements published by the ministry, say that they learnt a lot from Sawa military training, Sawa educational activities helped them in understanding about themselves, about their country, about politics, about security, etc. A very rosy picture is painted of Sawa by Eritrean government. Eritrean government says Sawa is melting pot where people from different ethnicities, different regions gather. They share their experiences and they turn into just Eritreans. They discard their or they throw their ethnic inclinations in the background, that they just become true Eritreans. But human rights organizations say that Sawa is a nightmare for Eritrean youth. Eritrean youth wants to skip Sawa. And one of the reasons behind migration from Eritrea is said to be this Sawa military training, which is followed by national service, which is indefinite sometimes. So after training, it's not that the recruits are free. No, they'll become part of the military or they'll join national service. Their national service tenure is indefinite sometimes. That is Sawa. That is why Sawa is a nightmare, people say, for Eritrean youths. Now, how to understand what Sawa is really? It's not difficult. If Eritrean government wants to tell the world what Sawa is, it can easily invite international media African media to visit Sabah. International media can visit, it can be given access to Sabah. Human rights organizations can be given access to Sabah. They should be allowed to visit Sabah. If Sabah is backbone of Eritrean defense and there is nothing wrong with what is happening there, no human rights abuse is being committed there, I think Eritrean government should open up. It should invite human rights organization, international media to visit Sabah. Let those who criticize Sabah see for themselves what is happening at Sabah. But Eritrea is closed. Those who criticize Eritrea are not allowed to enter Eritrea. Lastly, we have Sudan. Sudan-Chad border. We know that tens of thousands of Sudanese refugees have entered Chad from Sudan due to the war which broke out on the 15th of April. Most of these refugees are from Darfur, where we saw ethnic clashes. Rapid support forces and the Arab militias reportedly they carried out ethnicity-based attacks. Tens of thousands displaced, hundreds killed in Darfur. Clashes still ongoing. Arabs are being displaced, non-Arabs, are being displaced from Darfur because Janjaweed, RSF are Arab militias. Now, when they are entering in Chad from Sudan, Chadian military receives these Sudanese refugees. French military is also deployed on Chadian soil on Chad-Sudan border. A video is being shared showing an operation launched by Chadian and French soldiers to relocate Sudanese refugees from a town which is on Sudan-Chad border, on Chad side of the border, to another location. The operation was jointly launched by Chadian and French militaries. My question is Chad colonized? Why is there need for deployment of French military on Chad-Sudan border? This type of missions can easily be conducted by Chadian military. So while people complain that Western powers, they still have their colonial ambitions, they don't want to leave Africa. Don't you think that leaders are to blame too, African leaders too? Why do they allow these foreign forces to operate on their soil when their own militaries can carry out these tasks too? There is collusion, there is a nexus between ruling African elite and Western powers, America, EU. And that is how they consolidate their rule. These African leaders, that is how they consolidate their rule. If their governments are in danger, if there is opposition, then they start accusing the West and the US. Watch a clip from Chad-Sudan border showing joint evacuation, joint mission launched by Chadian French soldiers for relocation of Sudanese refugees. Thank you for watching.
Avec qui nous travaillons tous les jours, et c'est bien ce trio de l'armée française, de l'État tchadien et du HCR qui répond surtout à la demande de la crise humanitaire, quelle que soit la nationalité des gens. Ce qui compte, c'est que tous ces gens qui viennent ici, tous ces réfugiés qui arrivent autour d'Adré, eh bien, soient bien pris en compte et relocalisés vraiment ici pour appuyer l'État tchadien dans l'accueil qu'il fait de tous ces réfugiés. Et la France n'a pas à voir avec la guerre au Soudan aujourd'hui. Je suis pas là pour ça. Avec un convoi d'une centaine de militaires français, appuyés par environ 4 soldats tchadiens qui sont là pour nous faciliter le déploiement au quotidien. Et on a environ 20 à 30 camions et on effectue donc les rotations entre les différents camps qui nous sont donnés par l'UNHCR. Donc au quotidien, les choses se traduisent comme vous pouvez le voir actuellement, c'est-à-dire qu'il y a